Welcome to Horror Haven. The storyteller is a girl with whom the whole scene happened. I won't tell you who I am, what my name is, what I do. It's not important. What matters is what I experienced literally 2 days ago. My daughter and I live together, not that we are rich, but we have enough for bread. My husband drank heavily, and that's why he left our world. Everything was fine in our lives, and we were the most ordinary average family, until Sergey started drinking. I don't know the reasons, but these strange things started after the death of his mother, my mother-in-law. Maybe it's somehow connected to the story that happened to me, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about everything in order, as I said before. I live with my daughter, Marina, she's 8 years old. In general, on one fine evening, I came home from work exhausted. Marina was sitting studying her lessons, everything was as usual. After dropping my bag on the shelf in the hallway, I went to the room, changed clothes, and went to the kitchen to heat up yesterday's soup. I was incredibly hungry. After the meal, just a couple of minutes later, there was a strange knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, although it was only 8 p.m. Maybe neighbors or someone else looked through the peephole and found only an empty staircase and a flickering light bulb in the corner that no one bothered to change for years. God, where do I live? But why was I unlucky to be born in this hole? My mood was just terrible. Some young peeps are causing trouble, I thought, and went to the room to watch TV. But before I could take the remote in my hand, I heard the knock again. I looked through the peephole again, still no one. Opening the door, I looked at the staircase strangely. What kind of nonsense is this? Or am I already glitching? No, I thought I heard footsteps. I went to the room, lay down on the couch, turned on the TV, and immersed myself in my series. That was the only thing that distracted me from this gray existence. And about 15 minutes later, the knock came again. But who could it be? Marina, go see who's knocking. Marina came into my room and with a surprised face said, "You know, Mom, no one is knocking there. You need to finish work in 2 shifts, you're starting to see things." Hugging my daughter and covering her with a blanket, we sat together and watched TV. An hour later, I put Marina to bed in her room, told her a fairy tale, and lay down beside her. It didn't last long before a very loud bang of the door woke me up, as if Sasha had gone there or Sergey had come out. Sergey often came home from work at night, so I didn't pay much attention to it. 5 seconds later, I jolted out of bed, and Marina woke up too. Who on earth could it be? Sergey had passed away, so who slammed the door? What the hell is going on? Putting on my robe, I went to the hallway. The door was open. I distinctly remembered locking it. I always lock the door with 2 bolts at night. Not only was it unlocked, but it was wide open. That's when fear started creeping in, prickling my entire body with needles. I closed the door again, put Marina back to sleep, and lay down next to her. I couldn't sleep anymore that night. What was that? I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in anything, not in God, not in the devil, not in any kind of mysticism, but this looked at least strange. Nevertheless, towards morning, around 7 o'clock, sleep embraced me. It was Saturday, Marina didn't have to go to school, and I didn't have to go to work. I woke up early for some reason, having overslept for 2 hours. A profound fatigue hung over me, as if I had been unloading freight wagons all night and had no desire to get up at all, although I didn't particularly want to sleep either. It was a strange state. But I had to get up anyway. I had to make breakfast, feed my child, set the table, and get out of bed. Throwing on my robe, I went to the kitchen. The first thing that caught my eye was a cup sitting in the middle of the kitchen table. You might say, so what now? But it wasn't just any cup, it was my late husband's cup. And you know what? I threw away all of his things, absolutely everything, so as not to think about him or remember him at all. How did it end up here? What's going on? This was getting downright scary. Goosebumps covered my entire body. I grabbed a cigarette, sat down at the table, and lit it. Various thoughts crowded into my head, but nothing rational or normal came to mind. For some reason, I couldn't think straight. I was pulled out of my reverie by the cigarette but burning my finger, and I remembered why I had come to the kitchen. I threw the cup into the trash and started preparing breakfast. The day passed in household chores, cleaning, laundry, cooking. The incident simply slipped my mind. The fatigue didn't dissipate, it would ebb and flow, but it didn't go away. I noticed that it intensified precisely when I was in the apartment. Plus, there was another oddity. Why was there sand in my bed? I had a very bad feeling about tonight. I don't know why, but it was half-heartedly bad. I prepared dinner for Marina, dressed, and left the apartment. A small church stood by the entrance. As I approached it, the thought of going inside occurred to me. Let me repeat, I'm a person who never believed in anything like this, but given the recent events, I decided to go inside. After talking to the priest and telling him about the situation in the apartment, we agreed that he would come to our place tomorrow and bless the apartment. I left him the address and, feeling somewhat relieved, headed home. Upon entering the apartment, I found nothing suspicious. The fatigue still didn't leave me, it would decrease and then intensify again. I noticed that it intensified precisely when I was in the apartment. Plus, there was another oddity. Why was there sand in my bed? It was a strange feeling, but I had to get up. I had to prepare breakfast for my child. As we walked home, my head filled with all sorts of nonsense about evil spirits and so on, but I remembered the neighbor's words and decided to visit the church again. Meanwhile, I went to the doctor too, and he said that everything was fine with my little one. She was completely healthy, and I could take her home now. I felt relieved. We rushed out of the ward, and after about 30 minutes, we were heading home. As soon as our house came into view, my head was filled with all sorts of nonsense again about evil spirits and whatnot. But I remembered the neighbor's words and decided to visit the church again. The priest was about to leave, but I persuaded him to come to our place right away, as things weren't going well and the premonition was getting stronger. With every meter closer to the apartment, I was thinking, I should have moved somewhere temporarily. But where to go? My daughter and I have no one else in the world. We have nowhere to go. The priest agreed, and the three of us headed up the stairs. Upon entering the apartment, the priest's demeanor changed immediately. He quickly took out all his tools, said a prayer, sprinkled holy water, and swiftly left. His final words were, "Leave this place. Evil is too strong here, and it won't be easily expelled. Did you think it was your late husband visiting you? Alas, it's not. Something else, something terrifying and inexplicable, is visiting you. It feeds on your fear and life energy. I've done all I can. I hope this helps." With that, he closed the door behind him. I went to the kitchen, lit a cigarette, and held my head in my hands. What had just happened? What evil had taken root? But upon reflection, it all made sense. He said it feeds on fear and life energy. That's where the weakness and fatigue come from. And fear, the biggest of all, is the memory of my husband. I was afraid to remember, and yet his things started appearing in the house. Goosebumps covered my body, and my heart began to beat faster. But there was nowhere to escape. No money, nothing. There were only sniffles and aches. And there, in a moment, winter was coming. Today, there was nothing left but to spend the night in this apartment. After dinner and putting Marina to bed, I took a shower, unfolded the sofa, and got lost in thought. My eyes closed, and I fell asleep almost immediately. At 2 in the morning, the most terrifying thing I've experienced in all my 35 years of life happened. Marina woke me up. She had gotten up to use the bathroom. And you know what she asked me when she woke me up? "Mom, who's sleeping with you?" she asked boldly. And I felt someone lying next to me. I was overwhelmed with fear. I literally started shaking. Something was lying on my bed, right next to me. In the mirror on the nightstand, I could see what it was. It was a creature with human facial features, but the face itself was very pale, almost completely white, with black eyes and mouth. It was wrapped in a blanket and lying on my bed. What was this? Panic overtook me. I quietly got out of bed, and it didn't move. I left the room, got dressed Marina, and we quietly left the apartment. It didn't notice us or deliberately let us go. I don't know. I was shaking, and Marina was crying. What should we do? We didn't know. We left the building, and I saw something that just broke me. From the window of my apartment, someone, or something, was staring straight into my eyes from the kitchen. The feeling of fear is indescribable. In short, I decided to try asking Nikolaevna for shelter, and after knocking on her door for about 10 minutes, she opened it, looked at me with surprise, and invited us in. I explained everything that had just happened, and she, being a religious woman, believed us and allowed us to stay with her for the time being. I decided to sell the apartment. I don't know what kind of nonsense this was. Life settled into a routine at Nikolaevna's place, and everything fell into place. Marina went to school, I went to work, everything was fine until one night. I heard a knock on the front door and then a bang. Do you want to know what happened to her? Subscribe to the channel and wait for the next part, which is in making. You can also watch more scary stories by clicking on the stories on your screen.